for joining us. You join us as we pull out of the Aire de Saint Helle Cots. Excuse the pronunciation, but it's the last air that is still open before you get to Calais, despite the fact it's still 62 kilometres before we reach the tunnel. They've all been closed because of people illegally trying to get to the UK via the tunnel. While we were actually in the service area, we did have a bit of an issue with a couple of refugees or immigrants. I'm not quite sure what you call these guys, but they were trying to actually get into the locker under the bed. But I've seen quite a lot on social media about people getting into people's caravans and motorhomes, etc. So I made sure everything was locked up. But it was quite interesting to see that they did actually try our locker. While we actually stopped at the air was just initially to put the GoPro in, set the GoPro away, because I wanted to catch this video. I tried to catch the video coming of the tunnel crossing when we came south from the UK to France, and for some reason I had problems. But this time I was determined to record the full passage, because I think the tunnel's a really good way of getting to France and getting back to the UK. Much better than the ferries, particularly on a day like it was today, which was one of the recent storms with really high winds. The video doesn't really show it, but the wagons were really struggling. We were going pretty slow just to maintain some progress. And just by way of illustration, we're just about approaching the next air, which is Aire de Villefleur, and you can see as we approach the slip road coming up that it's actually been closed. The sign here doesn't indicate it's closed. It's about 1 kilometre away. But when we get to the next sign, you'll see that it is fermé, although in fact half of the fermé sign has actually been blown away. And as we approach the start of the slip road here, you'll see that it's bollarded off to prevent people using it as a stopover. Here we are. We're still 49 kilometres from Calais, and then we approach the next toll, and you can see we've got the bip and go system, tag system in the vehicle. So as soon as we get close to the barrier goes up automatically. So it's one less thing to worry about when you're going through. It's tricky enough with an 8-foot wide caravan going through some of these tolls. There's not a lot of space, but at least you don't need to stop. The barrier will just go up as you approach it, and you get a confirmation bip. You'll notice even here on the right, there's normally parking available there to rest while you're waiting to arrive at the tunnel at the right time or whatever, but this has also been closed off. You're expected to arrive 45 minutes before your tunnel crossing departure time. Because of the wind, we were giving ourselves plenty of time to get to Calais, and now anticipate getting there probably 2 hours before our departure time, which is actually the limit on how early you can actually arrive. As we approach the outskirts of Calais, you can see we follow the simple clear signage for the Calais tunnel. The French signage is all very clear and unambiguous. Even here they're telling us it's 17 kilometres before the turn off for the tunnel, which is very close to the tunnel terminal actually. Here we are approaching what was the last air, although this is closed. 1 kilometre away. See, as we get nearer to this signage, that it's clearly fermé. some areas of the vlog have been speeded up, so we didn't want you watching this for 3.5 hours. So please forgive the speeding. We were going quite slow actually, but there are areas of it that looks like we're speeding. And again, you can see the service area closed off there. So back onto the navigation. So we're back down the road a bit further now, and this is the straight on for the tunnel. Thankfully, on a stormy day, we didn't have to turn right for the ferry, because when we got to see the sea, it was like a boiling pot. Again, the overhead gantry makes it clear as to which route you need to take. You can see from that last junction, and in fact the junction coming up, there ain't many people turning off for the car ferry today. The ferries were all cancelled. This is the point where we turn off the A16, again following the overhead gantry signage for the tunnel. This next gantry signage is the first signage that starts to separate the types of transport for the tunnel. Trucks turning right, cars, caravans, buses going left, or rather taking the left lane. That's where the wagons turn off. We continue straight on and then go over the A16. Ready to approach the first checkpoint. Unfortunately, as we turn, we're now driving into the sun, so unfortunately the GoPro's not picking up the images as well as it could have done. But as we approach this first overhead gantry, we basically follow, because we've paid for our ticket in advance, we basically just follow the check-in signage and the little symbol. Which is almost like a letterbox type thing. I'm not quite sure what the symbol is, but so as we approach this booth, very similar to the tolls along the road, we select the lane we want to be in. Obviously, one with a green arrow helps with the check-in symbol. As we approach it, there's obviously CCTV or cameras detecting our number plate, because once we are level with the booth on the left, there's a display on that booth that basically says, "Welcome, Mrs. Matson. This is your train that you're booked onto." And because we're quite early, we're literally exactly 2 hours early at this point, it gave us the opportunity to change our trains to an earlier train if we wanted to at no extra cost. So Elaine selected that before we moved on. This machine also prints out a ticket that you hang on your mirror. It basically gives you a letter that you follow, shows you're a car and caravan, the date you're crossing, and on the back It gives you all the safety do's and don'ts. So once we've got that ticket, we then roll on to the next checkpoint. This is the French border police. Just hand in passports, get passports back. I don't think they said much from memory, and we pushed on. This next checkpoint is the UK border control. Back into English speaking. Just a simple passport check. That's where we've been. More for interest, I think, than anything else. And then we pushed on a bit further. So that's the end of customs controls, etc. We basically just follow N now, so straight on was M, all other letters were right at this roundabout. So we follow right, as we are letter N for November. This little route guides us round to a parking area where you basically park up, and there's a big information display board that calls you when your train is ready for loading. So at this point I thought, after we parked up, we'd take the opportunity to have a quick comfort break in the terminal building, and also get us some food at the Burger King for on the train. I think it actually took longer to be served in Burger King than it did for the whole tunnel transit. It seemed to take forever. So here I am, coming back from Burger King, just in time really, as it turns out. So I give Elaine the Burger King meal through the passenger window, and then I take the opportunity to feed the GoPro with a new memory card and another battery to make sure we don't cut out halfway through the crossing. And then as I get out the van, I also, at this point, turn the gas off to the van. So we're ready for the crossing. By the time I've done this, the big board is now saying they're ready for us to load. As you can see, the guy next to us has just moved off. We basically follow him round the system to the next checkpoint. On all of this route, we're basically just following car and caravan symbols and letter N. It's fairly straightforward. A little bit difficult to see because we're travelling into the sun again. this is the final checkpoint, or check-in point, I suppose, before we queue to board the train itself. And all we've got to do here is show the ticket. She scans it, make sure what's on the ticket, I guess, matches what's in front of her in terms of car and caravan. And she also asked to have a look at the gas bottles to satisfy herself that they were switched off. You can see how windy it is, but I showed her the two gas bottles, showed her how they were both turned off. She was happy with that and directed us to the queue, or which of the queues to tag onto the back of. So we move round and join the back of the queue. It was actually at this point in this queue that the wind was unbelievably strong, and it was coming directly from the right, and the caravan was certainly wobbling around. It doesn't show too much on here, although you can see that the trees are blowing around a little bit. I was pleased to get moving again. So we'll go through here again, just following the car in front at this point, and we just queue on this ramp just to go down to the platform itself. As you get down to the bottom of the platform, I'm trying to create a little bit of space between me and the vehicles in front, just to buy yourself a little bit of thinking time, so that you can see the angles that you need to move to get aligned with the railway carriage opening. It's all very well when you've got vans in front that are 6 foot wide, but when you've got an 8 foot caravan, you need to know for yourself that you're happy with your positioning. So I kept it fairly well right at this point. Then as you turn onto the train, I also thought I would drive through the train, if you like, a little bit, to get myself straightened up in good time. You could probably get in without doing that, but I went through the train, turned back, just so that I could get the caravan straightened up earlier than need be, really, for the entrance to the train. There's not a lot of space in here from your caravan wheels to the little curb on the footpath edges. You're talking maybe 2.5–3 inches at each side. So it takes a little bit of, you can see my position, I'm just getting used to the width, looking in the mirror at my wheel and looking in the mirror at the other wheel. And it's just a case of driving down the train. It's a little bit up and down where the train connections are, and you go through these doors which are fire breaks along the train. Again, it's worth leaving a bit of space between yourself and the vehicle in front, because eventually the vehicle in front will stop, and you need to stop with your outfit so that it isn't fouling one of these fire breaks. And the last thing you want to do is start reversing on the train. So it's better to leave yourself a little bit of space between you and the vehicle in front, so that you can gauge whether or not your outfit's going to fit in before the next fire break. Take this opportunity just to discuss costs. The Chunnel is more expensive than on a ferry. However, comparatively, it actually cost us £341.60 for our crossing. That's for the two of us and a pretty large caravan, pretty large car. Now, if we put the same vehicles and caravan on the ferry, it would have cost £300, and that's without the club lounge access which is an extra £12 that you'd probably want to take out. So it's a little bit dearer, but I don't think it's too much more expensive. So you can see the vehicle in front has now stopped, and there's a fire brake quite a little way behind them. So what you don't want to do is to run right up behind them. As people stop, there's an attendant there putting a chock under their wheel. So I just hang back here because I'm thinking we need to be this side of the fire brake. I'm not going to get positioned there. The attendant then shuts the fire brake wall and waves me forward up to a notional line. And then she pulls a chock out the side and puts it under my front wheel. I'm not quite sure what that really does in reality. I don't think it does a great deal to stop me moving around. So to then bring the fire brake wall down, these fire brakes are quite complicated in that they still maintain doors either side, so you can actually walk up and down the train with a fire brake shutter in the centre. Quite a complicated bit of engineering. Once they're down, you've also got to open your windows and your sunroof. And at this point, I took the opportunity to just take my Caravan mirror off one side. People seem to walk down this side of the train more than anything else. It just gives them a little bit more room. So the train's still filling up. We still haven't set away yet. You can see there's still daylight coming through these windows. But I just thought I'd take a quick snap of each side of the Caravan just to show the sort of space you have got at each side. There's not a great deal of space really. These doors, you can walk up and down the train. You basically press the button, wait a couple of seconds, which releases some sort of a mag lock. Then you can actually push the door open. Nobody seems to want to wait the 2 seconds to release the mag lock. The other thing to note is that the toilets are at either end of the train. So it's quite useful having a Caravan on the back of your car. If you do need to go to the facilities, it's a lot nearer than walking the whole length of the train. So we ate our Burger King on the train. It's not a long crossing at all. I think it's supposed to be 35 minutes, but it really doesn't seem like 35 minutes. And before long I'm at the stage where I'm thinking about putting the mirror back on. You can see we're still under the sea, we're still in darkness, there's no daylight coming through the side yet. But it isn't long before daylight starts flickering through, which is a pretty good indication we're nearly there. It's at this point they come and scan your ticket, I guess to make sure you're still on the train. I'm not quite sure where they think you've gone in the journey, during the journey, but yeah, they scan your ticket anyway. And it isn't long before the fire brake shutter starts lifting, and they come along the train. It's the point where the train is now stopped. They come along the train to take the wedges out. The doors then open, and you can see that cars actually start moving in front of us. It isn't long before we start moving ourselves. And driving off is exactly the same as driving on. Slow and steady. Here we are, back into daylight. Just need to get off the train without catching the van on anything, which is pretty straightforward. A lot easier than pulling on. Allowing ourselves to go up the ramp from the platform, and then it's just literally a case of following the arrows, or in our case we just follow the vehicle in front out of the terminus. So back in the UK, driving on the right side of the road, which is the left, and in our case following the A20 route, because we went to the Black Horse site now just for a 24-hour stopover. So that more or less concludes the vlog. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I wanted to put in all the points along the way so that anybody else who fancies it can see how simple it is. Much more simple than getting on the ferry, particularly with a caravan on board. Until next time, see you later.